Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Strix here. This is I guess a follow-up video for the first one that I did, exploring the new features of these, I guess I'll just run with the name, the Autominer core for now, since I like that. It's pretty, it's pretty in line with what's actually going on here. So in the last video, I looked at all the new stuff they added, what these new, like, how these new things actually work, what you have to do through the menuing and whatnot, and what all the different features require to be activated and whatnot. So I showed you guys activating this new auto miner mode and then even feeding a nano core to it and what all that stuff gives you, like the new loot boxes and stuff like that. And then towards the end, I got to demonstrating this thing in action. And I didn't really have a lot of success with it in the beginning because I didn't really know what I was doing. I could tell right away from the beginning, like just how it behaved. Like we saw, like, okay, it's gonna warp me to 0. It's just gonna activate everything willy-nilly. So it's not really great for min-maxing, but if you can create a build that just runs stably, that doesn't cap itself out, or that doesn't um, that can rep stably, then there is potential for this to work to some extent. The ticks aren't going to be great, but if you're going to AFK anyways, or if you're not going to be able to devote your full focus to the game, and actually, cycling all of your mods at their optimal times, then this might just be the one potential use case for that, is to just take your hands off of the steering wheel a tiny bit. And so that's what I've done. As you can see, I'm out here in Clarelam. I would be doing this at home in Pocket if I could, but I went to try it on the anoms out there, and something was just bugged. I could not get it working. That might have just been something from the last test, or just some new bug that's cropped up recently here. So I went out to Clarelam and I picked up some encounters, and we're just cycling through those right now and seeing how this current build holds up. So far I'm working through a full set of encounters and I haven't ran into any issues. So I can say with some confidence that this is a decent working build. What we've got here is just our Apoc Striker. So you can see we have 2 reppers. Here, let me go to the fitting for you. It's probably easier to see. So we've got a full fit of pulses on because, again, it's going to warp you to 0 to every anomaly. Maybe in the future they will add a way for it to configure a warp distance, or maybe that's something you'll do. Oops, did I just, oh, I just broke it. Maybe that's something you'll be able to do, from your central radial hub here. Oh, is it gonna try again? Here, just, yeah, do your thing. Do your thing, alright, so I can get on with... There you go. Okay. We're gonna wait for this to get in warp so I can show you what I mean. The central little radial hub here, where you configure your auto warp and your auto approach. Maybe it'll be the same thing, like that. They've hinted at this being a feature in the past, but who's to say for sure? Wow, I only have 3 this time around. Wonder if it'll be able to clear through them. But so yeah, here's the build. We've got our full fit of pulses, because again, it's going to warp you to 0, so you need brawl fits for the time being. 2 reppers, because you do end up taking like quite a bit of damage in the final wave, and so dual reppers is kind of needed. I have an extra red on me that I haven't tested yet, so you can test that on your own, swapping out a repper for that other red. Maybe you do have better reps than me and you're able to skate by with 1 rep. I'm sorry, with 1 rep. And if you're cap stable that way, then definitely go for that. That'll be a lot better than having 2. Then I have 2 heat sinks, not optimal. but it's what I need to have because I need that tracking comp on there. And what you'll notice if I hover over this is that I have a tracking GUN. And I think this is what ties the whole build together because this is a pretty high level tracking GU. I have it tier 8. I just pulled this one last week from my most recent run of Dormants, so I was pretty lucky. And I've been able to implement it here to some success. And so the point of that tracking, obviously, is because I still have a tough time hitting some of the frigates. What I was doing first is I had painters on instead of webs. I was hoping that I would be able to keep a little bit of range, like I had a micro warp drive in my lows, and that was just not working. Do not use a micro warp drive with this. It will want to keep your micro warp drive on 24/7, and you're gonna cap out. So that just was not a good time. So I just had to experiment around. Obviously, I need at least 2 NOS on here, otherwise my cap starts to suck ass. And so yeah, this just barely works. This just barely works, but it works. And then of course in my rigs, I have the 3 laser burst aerators. Shout out to Sugar from my corp for donating me the last burst rig that I needed for our dormant runs. It was really nice to do that. And then I have 3 SMCs on. Oh, I don't. Actually, I have a CCC in here, which might possibly be a bottleneck. But I only have 1, so it's not stacking penalized. Even with 2 SMCs, it was found that they're not stacking penalized, so they just apply linearly, so you get the same 22% increase every time to your base cap amount. If it applied it to the new cap amount, then yeah, that would be a bit of an exponential increase, but it doesn't work that way. It's just plus 22% to your base cap amount of your ship every time. And so that was found to be better because the CCC rigs are actually stacking penalized. So if I had 2 on here, the second one would be even less effective. So for that reason, 3 SMCs is currently the meta. Because if you just have more cap overall, your natural cap regen rate is calculated based off of that. So the actual rate of gigajoules per second or whatever that you regen naturally is based on your total cap divided by cap recharge time, right? And so increasing your total cap, obviously, but keeping the cap recharge time the same leads to an increase, and so does reducing the recharge time, right? So that's what these rigs do in particular. But with the penalties, this attenuates the CCCs. They attenuate the more you have on there. The SMCs do not, so that's why they're meta for natural cap stability. And so, yeah, that's everything that's holding the build together. So we can just kind of observe how this works. What you'll notice right off the bat is, yes, siege mode is off. This thing will not activate siege mode for you. And honestly, this is just my personal opinion from someone who just AFKs all the time. Yes, you know, I am bending the knee here quite a bit. I'm not saying I'm going to be doing this regularly, but like when I am AFKing, I want to just be able to leave this thing on its own and devote my full focus to the other thing that I'm doing. I don't even want to have to worry about this. So managing siege mode for that reason, especially when you have pulses on and you're brawling, is not the move for me personally. But for some of you guys, I know that you like to have that for the extra DPS, and you know that's the other major thing that contributes to your ticks, along with keeping focus crystal up, is just you know, as many hits as possible with siege mode and your max stacks of focus crystal. So again, I think if you find a way to have the thing warp you out at range, or if that gets introduced in the near future, then maybe there's some optimizing that we'll be able to do. But for now, we're about to warp off to a new encounter here, so I'll just share with you guys some of my observations as we go about this. I wouldn't happen to have a purple encounter in here, would I? I don't think so. No, but there is one in the system. So this will be interesting. It doesn't look like it took it, but there is one here in Clarelam, so we'll see what happens with that. So yeah, so the first thing you'll notice is with these cooldown modules here, my heat sinks and my tracking computers, they're going to go on right away. They're all going to go on at the same time. And what's going on here is that every time your ship switches targets, like right now, we just switched over to the Genin. So like every time something dies, your ship will do, I guess, a quick little scan for what ships are remaining and what modules can be brought online. And then at that point, once it's getting ready to shoot at its next target, it'll make all of those decisions on what modules to activate on what ships and who to shoot. And then if these cooldowns are off, then it will activate all of them at that point. So theoretically, yes, it is possible to retain a cycle of your heat sinks if you were to just manually activate one of them yourself. That way you create an offset in the cooldowns. But with the way the timing works, the fact that it'll only look to activate them when it's getting ready to shoot at a new target, then it might not be something that sustains over time. Your cycling of the heat sinks. So another thing you'll notice is that with the webs, obviously I'm in an Apoc, so I don't get any bonuses to the webs, so I just have my 13.6 kilometer range. It knows when to activate those webs. So right now nothing's in range, but this Dragoon 2 is about to come in range, and so watch what happens when it does. Actually, just one shot the Dragoon. Okay, thanks, game. Thanks for ruining my demonstration. But once something that is webbable does come into range, it will web it. So I think it's also watching here for the ranges and just doing a I don't know, whatever, if it has its own tick rate or if it just checks it every time something gets a bit closer. Here, maybe this Omen will get into range and it'll web that. Then it just also watches out for that. Come on, you're at 14. Damn. I'm just blapping away at him too quickly, I guess. I'm just built different. But yeah, so the thing about that is that, like, obviously, you know, there's the concern about, oh, what if what if just some random frigate gets under your tracking and you're completely unable to hit it, right? And you know, your ship is primaried on that frigate, whether because it's like the closest thing or it's just decided to shoot that, or maybe even it's the last thing on grid and you just can't hit the damn thing and it's under your tracking. You know, you're losing cap, the other ships are blabbing away at you. You're just gonna die if you're AFKing like this. So you also need to consider that in your build, and that's where this extra tracking really comes in handy for me. Because with the two webs, I'm just barely able to get the frigates down to a speed where I can hit them without even needing to go hot on the tracking computer. So this thing does work. You know, I could probably leave this sit and it'll just clean through encounters until I hit the limit. But if you're, you know, super diehard, so as you can see there, it did eventually proc the webs when the coercer got in range, and now you'll see it's just flickering my lasers on and off. as you can see, it's like just taking one shot on the Abaddon, then disabling and re-enabling the guns, and then it eventually just decides to kill that destroyer. So this is really interesting. I think the game does have, sorry, not the game, I think the bot does actually have some idea of what the ship's transversal velocity is, because it's holding off. It had that destroyer webbed for a few cycles, and then eventually it just decided, okay, I'm gonna shoot the thing now, and it hit. So in my first video, obviously if you're doing this manually yourself, then yeah, you know to do that. You know to have your web cycle a few times so the thing slows down to the proper speed where you can track it. And so in my original video, I wasn't able to demonstrate that because I was just going out with the glass cannon fit and it wasn't working. But I think it does have some idea of how to hit, you know. And so it's able to keep your focus crystal fully charged for a decent bit, but you will still have misses. Um, like sometimes it'll just randomly switch to a frigate, you know, with its small sig before the webs have fully kicked in. And I'm barely able to track the frigates. So you can see right here, the frigate's the last thing on the grid. And I wasn't able to hit it that first time around. So it's not always gonna work, but it works well enough that I don't need to watch over it. And that's all that I need. So there's 16 minutes left on my timer for when I can refresh, and we're already warping to the last encounter. So I think this will be the last encounter that I show you guys, and then I'll dock up and end the recording. That's pretty much all of the commentary that I had. I just wanted to show you guys what I'm currently working with and sort of give my current perspective on what this thing is doing and possible improvements here and there that you can uh, adjust with. Yeah, so I'll shut up now and I'll just let this anom grind itself out, and then I'll give some closing thoughts at the end here. So as you guys can see there, I was just pointing out a few of these edge cases where it did have to make some decisions on what it was going to do. So for that one frigate, it just happened to be, the next closest ship that it was going to shoot at. And, that first shot, when the webs hadn't fully kicked in yet, it was not able to hit. And then later on, a few cycles in, we did just barely start to be able to track the frig enough that we could consistently hit it for some decent damage. You know, obviously it wasn't getting one shot, and if you're not one-shotting a frigate, then that's pretty bad on its own at this level. But it was able to hit, so it's not going to be a problem. As for getting yourself soft locked using this feature. So this build, again, just barely works, and a lot of that has to do with this tracking GU that I have in. So, yeah, you're probably going to have to make some optimizations on your own, like fitting a second GU, fitting a second tracking computer and getting your own tracking GU. That'll probably be enough to get enough tracking, but you'll lose a heatsink doing that. The heatsinks do contribute quite a bit of DPS. I think the first one that I had fit gave me like 300, then the second one gave me 250. And that's because, you'll also notice I have the heatsinks contributing quite a bit of damage. So this is that theory that I discussed earlier, where, look at that, perfect timing. So it's going to go to the news board. We're not going to be able to refresh. Okay, so let's disable this. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, there we go. Okay. What was I on about? Right. So the heat sinks have their own little damage enhancement, and this is from the efficiency geo. So this gives you, it augments the attribute for your damage. And so this was the theory I went over earlier, is that, if you're doing this, your heat sinks effectively become like your own collision rigs because they contribute equal or more of a damage bonus than collision rigs would. So that's why you would want to consider this 3-burst lineup, because the bursts, what they give you for cycle time, 12.5, is much, much, much better than what you get from heat sinks in terms of cycle time. So you get faster shooting guns from your bursts, you get more alpha damage from your heat sinks with the efficiency GUN, and everything overall is a net positive. So that's what makes these particular factors meta. So yeah, so you'd probably lose a heatsink if you had to add a second tracking computer, or I don't know, maybe with better skills or some different build, you're able to do better than I did here. And if you are able to pull that off, then definitely show me, because I'm willing to, I'm open to any and all feedback on any of this. I'm just somebody that just looks into how the game works and tries to disseminate that information to you guys to the best of my ability, because I guess, hopefully what I've heard from people is that I'm decently good at explaining things. So yeah, that's just what I'm trying to do here for you guys. So closing thoughts. First off, is this something, right, that is usable right now? Is this something that I should even bother with, or should I just ignore it? Is it just completely broken and it's just completely worthless? Well, again, I think in its current state, yeah, it functions. you know, their intended purpose was just to have something that auto warps you through your anomalies. And, you know, to that effect, we've seen that it does function. It's not optimal, doesn't enable siege mode for you, doesn't know how to manage range. Target selection, I think, could be improved a little bit, like how it just wants to shoot at frigs when they haven't been fully slowed down. But with the right build and with the right ship, like if you were to throw this onto a Vindy or if you were to throw this onto a Balgorn, you shouldn't have any problems whatsoever. Because, you know, those ships do give you the bonuses that you need. You know, the Vindy has its webs, the Balgorn has its NOS. So your stability in those areas will be a lot better and you'll do just fine. So naturally, the question follows then, is this worthwhile? Is this something that I should use? Is this something that I should invest my money in? And I think conclusively, from what we've seen already, I can say with full confidence that the answer is no. No. If you're somebody that does put time, like if you put hours into this game and you want the absolute most that you can get out of those hours, and if you're willing to, you know, actually focus through your ratting and grind it out on your own, even when you're doing like special anoms and stuff, no, you should not put your money into this. Because, you know, simply put, you're not going to get your money's worth out of it. Even more so due to the fact that you have to then be involved in this new gameplay loop where you have this AI mechanic, but that AI mechanic is enabled by feeding these amethyst cones into it. And, you know, the amethyst cones, currently the only way that I know of acquiring those is by getting them from your Concord store, you know, whether through these things or from these boxes. And so you constantly buy keys, you know, to actually, I can't even get any more keys from my Concord store. I don't know if that's a seasonal thing or not. So whether you buy them with your Concord points, or of course, they've added a way for you to buy as many keys as you want for 39R. So you constantly have to be buying these cones and putting them in to enable the feature. And then you also have these other new things, the tier 4 data that you have to get to train new levels, and the fact that you even have to sacrifice nanodes. You have to just throw them down the gutter, throw them away, so you can't even use them anymore to unlock attributes for these levels. Now, I was talking to Sugar, my courtmate, about this, and what we know so far about these new attribute bonuses is that once you do unlock one, you are able to choose the attributes, whichever one you want that you own, obviously one that you've opened with an nanocore, by putting that in as I demonstrated. And so you can choose one from here, whichever one you want, and it doesn't cost you anything to choose it or to change it. So you can, it'll just give you one at random when you unlock it, but then you're able to go into here and choose one that you want, and you're just able to put it in. And you'll get that one at whatever level that you have it. And so this is completely RNG, what you get from burning nanocores. And as you get more attributes, you level them up, and obviously that's how they scale, right? Rather than with the normal ones, you would have to spend these reroll mats, and it's a completely random range of percentages that you get. So whether or not that's better, who knows? Now, as for actually unlocking them for your first level here, I asked and it was not 100% every single roll. So even for your first roll here, you're going to have decaying probabilities. And so already this is a pretty big material sink. As you can see, these even take tier 4 computing chips. So you'll notice they have the same logo, but they're tier 4. You can't use your other nanocore materials on this. Same with these data banks. They have the new tier 4 look to them. And so yeah, these you also get from opening the box in the store. And I think right now that is the only way to get them is from this. And so they're a regular teardrop with all the other materials. And so you can get them from here that way, but they're in pretty small increments currently. So this is definitely meant to be a grind. And, you know, considering the reaction that people are having to this new update already, again, you know, consider what you're actually going to get out of this after you put money into it. Yeah, so that's all of my thoughts on this currently. Hope you guys enjoyed this little demonstration here, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.